You've manifested yourself into a human I can depend on to bring me happy.
Yes, because thank you for beaming aboard with us for this episode of A Captain's Log. I'm Ambassador Kreutz, and this person to my right would be the mirror episode me. If she was a male, it would be Lily Fox-Lim.
Right. Thank you. I think that was a call.
Well, it was. It needs some work, perhaps, maybe just a little bit.
No, it was great. No, it was great. I got the sentiment.
Okay.
So on tonight's show, we have a lot to talk about with our guest, Julie Caitlin Brown.
Yes, looking forward to it. We have so much to talk about with her. And we're kind of skipping any news that we have on this episode of A Captain's Log. However, before we get back to our interview with Julie, I want to check in with our correspondent, Harper.
BK and Lily, hi. How are you guys doing this fine evening?
We're doing great, Harper. Hope all is well with you.
Yeah, everything's been great. These Julie Caitlin Brown interviews are awesome, and I can't wait to see the second part.
Oh, yes, she's amazing, and I believe she'll have a lot more stories that are inspirational.
I look forward to it.
Okay, now Harper, do you have a new question that can stump the Lily Fox-Lim?
Oh yes, Harper, please, tractor beam me.
Yes, I've been mulling over some questions, and I think I may have a good one.
Cool, I'm excited to hear it.
I'm intrigued.
As am I.
This question was inspired by Julia Caitlin Brown. She might not have played these roles, but she came to mind while I was coming up with it.
How interesting.
Star Trek has over 300 types of aliens. Julia Caitlin Brown portrayed by Ty Kajeda, an alien from the Kolbliad species. She also played Becker, a mercenary whose species was named but was described as humanoid and similar to the Claistrons.
Okay.
There are 3 really popular alien species in Star Trek: the Vulcans, the Romulans, and the Klingons. Star Trek is known for reusing actors for different alien roles. So, here's the question. Who was the first actor to play all 3 of these popular alien species?
Ooh, wow. That's a good question.
A tough one at that.
Okay, this is a tough question. Indeed, it is. But as I go through with it in my Trekkie head, I think I've got the answers.
Oh, wow. All right. Please tell.
I was going back and forth, trying to figure it out.
Okay.
But the problem was, I only focused on the Next Generation era. After.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Right?
I follow
Okay.
you. All right.
Then, I started thinking about movies, too. As I was figuring it out, I remembered an actor who had a couple of firsts to play a few of these alien species, which is something that's often talked about in the Trekkie world.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch how your brain works because you got Eddie Murphy last time.
Thanks, BK.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
All
anyway,
right.
This actor is known as the first Romulan to appear on screen.
Oh boy.
But if you go by screen time order appearance, he'd technically be second. That's because the first actor, Lawrence Montaigne, who played Decius, wore a helmet, so you couldn't really see this Romulan with Vulcan-type ears.
That was in Balance of Terror, the original series, yes.
Yes.
Go on.
Okay, this actor was also in Star Trek The Motion Picture, where he played a Klingon. And what's important about this is that he was the first actor to play a Klingon with the ridges on his forehead.
Ooh.
And he was also the first to speak the Klingon language, of which I am so fond.
Yes, you speak it well.
Lujwij Pt.2.
Case in point, Klingonese is such a robust language. I love it.
Robust. And this character, BK, is related to the most famous Vulcan of them all.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. At first, I thought you were talking about Tom Morga, who technically tied being the first Klingon with ridges in Star Trek The Motion Picture. But it's Mark Leonard, who played Sarek, who was the father of Spock. Live long and prosper.
Yes, BK, Mark Leonard is our answer. There you go, Harper. You almost had me, but that was a big brain teaser. Yeah, you did almost get me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Harper. We'll talk to you soon.
Harper Dede, signing off. Peace and long life.
Bye.
A Captain's Log returns in a moment.
You've returned for more Star Trek talk and tenacious questions for our talented guest, Julie Caitlin Brown. This is a captain's log filmed in LA, the planet Earth's most famous place for TV and film production. Lily, I believe you have the next question for Julie.
Do I, BK? Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, actually you do, but let's just re-welcome back Julie. Hi, Julie. Thank you for agreeing to come back to the show.
I'm excited to be here.
I've been researching the sci-fi show Sliders. It's a great show, but could you share a little bit about the show with us?
Nobody knows this. They really don't follow this. But I was Colonel Kesh, the first female Cro-Mag on Sliders.
Nice.
So, Julie, you've had a long, decorated career. Is there a first you can share with us, whether it be career-wise or industry-wise?
I have a weird history of firsts. So I played the first trans character that I know in a comedy with Ted Danson on a show. I think I mentioned this before. He Said, She Said. I play his old high school buddy who's become a woman, and he's attracted to her.
Oh, that's awesome. No. You haven't talked about it before, but we'd love to hear more about it. Ted Danson has been acting for quite a while, right? Yeah. We'd love to hear more about working on the set with him.
Ted's really, really neat. And we had to talk about it. I said, I want to play this, pardon the pun, straight. I said, I have a lot of trans friends. I said, I want to, this is a person who's coming to her old buddy to kind of get their blessing. So, I want to play it very, very sincere. And he goes, oh, please do, because then I could be funnier. And I went, absolutely. So I played it, very, very direct and very, whatever, very earnest. And he just was hilarious. Go check it out. He Said, She Said, Ted Danson in Becker. It was just a blast. And, it's to me, a person is a person, a human being. Even if you're playing an alien, you're playing a consciousness. And so it really doesn't matter what they look like or how they sound. It's more, what are their intentions? And I had a really, really good time doing that with, Terry Farrell was in it. We had such a fun time together, because we had done Deep Space Nine.
Okay, so just to reiterate, this was Ted Danson's show Becker and the episode He Said, She Said. To our audience out there, please go check it out. But after the show, of course.
Of course. Okay, so Julie, from the last episode, you did tease us with some new projects. So could you, if you can, share a little bit with us?
This is interesting because everything I've done my whole life is very organically from either what I have observed or what I've experienced. So the one project that I'm in the middle of editing, it's called Noise. And in 2015, I had a traumatic brain injury. I was in the jungles of Puerto Rico with Jason Momoa. And there was this jungle excursion we decided to go on with some locals. And there was an obsidian rock slide that was in the middle of the river. It was just this really wild rock, and it was huge. I mean, it had to be 50 yards long or whatever. And there was water shooting down it. And so all the little kids were doing it. Hell, some of them were skating down it. I mean, it was wild. So Momoa gets up there and he's with his buddies and they're kind of tobogganing down and they're laughing. They're like, come on, Brown, do it. Well, I get up there and thinking it's a water slide. I crossed my hands and I crossed my feet, right? Nobody bothered to mention there was a rock at the bottom. And it had like a rip curl effect. So what I should have done is had my hands going like this. And I didn't. And I hit my head. And I hit it hard. And I went down in the water. I blacked out. The cold of the water kind of woke me up, broke me out of it. And my lip was split and bleeding. Momoa thought he killed me. But much like Jason is, he said, you gotta do it again. I went, what? He goes, gotta conquer your fear, do it again. And I said, oh, for God's sakes. I said, I'm not doing it by myself. I said, I hit my head. I said, I don't know what's going on. He's like, no. And he grabbed his buddy and he goes, toboggan down with her so she didn't hit her damn head again. I went, oh, good, thanks. So he gets behind me and he's kind of holding me and making sure that, I'm not toggling around. And we did it again and everybody was fine. And off we went for our day. And we were, having lunch and doing all these things. Well, we were all on a late flight and it's an overnight flight. By the time I got to, I think we flew into like Miami, something was happening in my brain. I had a migraine, like really bad. And I'd had migraines before, but this was different. And from that day in April 2015, things got progressively worse until January of 2018, my sister, who's a nurse, said, I don't know who you are anymore. I don't recognize your behavior. You're filled with anxiety. You're having panic attacks. You're claustrophobic. You have racing thoughts. You're compulsive. You're flying off the handle at everybody. I think you have a traumatic brain injury. And I said, why do you think that? And she said, because these are the markers of someone who's had an injury to their brain that hasn't been treated. I don't think you have a brain bleed or anything, but I think that you had some trauma. Can you remember? And I said, oh, I know exactly when it happened. It happened in Puerto Rico. So she turned me on to Daniel Amen at the Amen Clinics. And he does something called Spect scans, SPEC, I believe it's HT. But the Spect scan puts nuclear medicine into your brain. And so we can map the blood flow to the various parts of the brain. Because when your brain is functioning correctly and you understand how the brain is supposed to function, three things occur. You understand when you're off track. You understand when you're tired, or you haven't eaten, or you have all these other, halt, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. You go, oh, I'm not at my best. Maybe I shouldn't be having these big conversations. Two, if you are in a position where maybe you've been sick or there's been a huge crisis, you know what to do. You know what to do, right? Yeah. Three, by destigmatizing mental illness, because I wasn't mentally ill, but I had a brain that was sick.
Wow, that is amazing. You recorded this, you cataloged it, and are now turning it into a documentary film? Okay, so Noise is what it's called, through your own experience. I couldn't imagine what the year and a half was like, and nowhere near as an amnesia sense that you were in, but you were probably kind of a shadow of yourself, it sounds like. You're a different person, and it's unique, a very unique experience to go through. That's a lot to share, and we really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Right?
Is it in hope that we can look back at it and learn from it?
And in terms of like settling the United States, there were many frontiers women out of necessity. And I'm sure you could look at any culture and find those women,
Yeah.
But when we had the Second World War, and everyone was hands on deck.
Women were in the factories working and doing everything that men would originally be doing.
Everywhere. There was no choice. Well, you can't put that genie back into the bottle, can you?
Nope.
Which is why Gene Roddenberry's show was so prescient. He was filming that in 63? Before any of these rights were there for women or minorities. This is why art and people like Gene and Asimov and Roddenberry's, and not Roddenberry, Ray Bradbury. This is why it's so critical that we have free speech, that we can have artistic integrity.
And inclusion like that for a woman first officer in 63?
Races. Yeah.
Dear God, and there's a whole scene where Abraham Lincoln is on the bridge and he says, oh, a charming negress. And then she says, oh, we don't really use that term anymore. He goes, oh, have I offended you? And she goes, well, we learned a long time ago not to be afraid of words.
Oh, that is amazing dialogue. Artists like Roddenberry were so ahead of their time.
Totally.
So there will always be artists. And what I want to say to everybody who's freaking out about the election, hey guys, guess what? Science fiction is a place where everyone is welcome. It is a place where everyone can speak their viewpoint, even argue their viewpoint, but we walk away as, respected friends, maybe even respected enemies, but we don't fall into attacking the other person just because they have a different idea. That's never been the basis of sci-fi, anime, any of it. It's always been inclusive. That said, the people have spoken. And if you have control of the White House and sort of the Supreme Court and the House and the Senate, let's see you govern.
Agree. And I totally agree. You have to prove yourself the people voted you in, and now you will either sink or you'll swim.
I just talked to a gal last night. She was in the Marines. She was a sharpshooter. One of my dear friends, Yale, is in the Israeli army. She's a sharpshooter. She competes. You know, women are fantastic under pressure. Fantastic.
Yeah, and I'd argue that women are great for the military because you get a different perspective. It can help bring another type of mind.
Well, that's it. Because your combatants aren't always men, you know. See what they come up with. And trust me, if the people who voted him in don't have a better economy, their jobs are going away, their unions are being busted, they don't feel safe, it'll flip again.
You know, that's what I love about America. It can flip in an instance. If you don't do what you say or promise, then boom, see you later.
But it's also subjective to the majority. Like 60% can disapprove of what you're doing, 40% can agree. In our country, if the majority don't like it, then you're most likely done for.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Julie, can you tell us the name of your book so people can go get it?
Well, here's the funny thing. Love First was out on my own website. I had a Love First website and I got rid of that. And then I had Julie Caitlin Brown. I'm rebuilding that website and it will be on offer. There is another project I'm working on. I cannot talk about it because I'm on an NDA. Where all of my work is going to be showcased. And we're going to build a community. And I'm very excited about this new project. And I'm tapping into some amazing human beings who really know how to get this done. It's something I came up with during COVID, but in light of AI and a lot of the contraction of the entertainment industry, this just becomes, you know, an even more timely idea. So once I get all that launched, I'll come back on the show and I'll tell you all about it.
Awesome. We'd love to have you back on the show to talk about it.
Yeah.
At least by then, I'm going to have my website back up. Sweet. And I'll have a sales thing there. And then I may be going out and doing some appearances. I'm going to go to Croatia and appear in May. And then I'll give you a list of where I'm actually physically sitting down, and I might bring some of the CDs with me. They're on CD. I mean, I have them downloadable too, but it's archaic. Yes, I have them.
I see. I mean, if you're in a country like Croatia and traveling on the road, I think a CD would be best. I think the internet access wouldn't be great, you know, in one of those countries.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think a lot of cars, even though they don't, I mean, you can get all this stuff up onto Spotify. You can download it and get it onto the internet. There are people that still have CD players. It's kind of wild.
A Captain's Log returns in a moment.
Welcome back to your Star Trek source for Hollywood's biggest money-making TV science fiction franchise. Of course, it's Star Trek, but this is a Captain's Log.
All right, Julie, let's talk about one of my favorite topics, Star Trek. Paul Lynch, the director, seems to come up a lot in interviews that we've done.
He does.
He worked with you on Sliders, but he also directed you in the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode, The Passenger, where you played the character Ty Kajeda. Could you share what it was like working with Paul Lynch and your experience on that episode?
Just a blast with Paul. He took me to lunch. And I'll never forget it because I said, you know, Paul, this is before I did Babylon 5. And I said, you know, I'm a theater person. So I kind of work from the inside out. I want to know about this character. And he said, well, we've never seen this species before. We've never seen Kobliads. So it's your play yard. You can just do what you want. I went, oh, come on. He goes, this is what I need from you based on the script. She needs to be extremely sure of herself. She needs to be a warrior. She needs to be someone who is driven to capture Vantika. She is on a quest. She's been chasing this guy around the galaxy for 20 years. And she needs to be willing to do some very edgy things because we want this character to help establish that we're in the wild, wild west. We're on the edge of space. And the Federation rules don't apply.
Oh, yeah, because it's Deep Space Nine on a Cardassian space station.
I queried him about the glial cells and I said, okay, explain the glial cell. Because basically the idea was that I had neurotransmitters that Vantika had neurotransmitters under his fingernails. And when he grabs Bashir, he pierces the skin and he sends the glial cells of when he says, make me live, I can't believe I remember all this dialogue. He transfers his essence, his consciousness into Bashir. Well, because I faint, everyone thinks he's transferred it into me. So I went and found a neuroscientist. I said, okay, what's a glial cell? And what the hell's going on with it? I mean, it was hilarious. I had this big conversation. He goes, well, nanotechnology, we're not there yet. He goes, but there's, consciousness is something that if we could map it and figure out exactly what it entails, one could potentially replicate it and put it into a transmittable system. And I thought, okay, I'll buy it. So a couple funny stories about that. So it was very nice that Paul took me out so I could ask him all these questions. Then I went in and I met Mike Westmore, and we did the mask and all that stuff. That was a joy. And then I loved my character's look because she had very pretty hair. It was all my hair. And then she had like a little piece on her nose and a little forehead, and she's still pretty. So, but I found out a couple things. Number one, there are no nipples in space. You will wear a big bra. It will be bigger than you are, and there will be no nipplage. You will not see that. Okay. So that's one. Two, this was early in it was episode 9 of this first season. And so everybody was just like figuring themselves out. Nobody really had a true hand. They were still getting the groove, of their characters. And so it was fun to come in, but the guy that was playing Vantika, they forced my call 4 times, when that means that when you're in that kind of makeup, your call time is about 3:30 in the morning. And so you go in at 4 o'clock, you sit in the chair, and you're in that chair for 3.5, 4, maybe 5 hours. And then you start working. Well, because the makeup takes a long time, they tend to work the people who are in makeup really long, so they get a lot of scenes in. Well, we had gotten to the scene where I'm supposed to take a knife and stab him, and it was the dude's head and his arms and a styrofoam chest, and his body was under the table. And I have to do this slow tracking shot speech all the way around and come up to Bashir's face, right? Alexander Siddig, and deliver this big line and then stab him. Well, we didn't want to keep stabbing the costume and stuff, so we had to mark it a few times. And the guy goes, hang on a second, he says to Paul, how long has she been awake? And Paul said, I don't know. I was Caitlin. Then he goes, Caitlin, times you get up? I said, 2:30. He goes, well, it's 9 o'clock now. How you feeling? I said, I'm fine. And the guy goes, she's going to kill me. I said, I'm not going to stab you in the head. The worst that's going to happen is I might nick your arm. Okay? It was a real knife. I said, trust me, I'm a professional. It'll be fine. So I did it, marked it, did it, marked it. And then I said, okay, let's do this thing. Went around it, bam! And it was perfect. And it was just funny because they were all laughing. All the crew was laughing because that guy was scared to death. And then the other thing on Deep Space Nine that was interesting for me was that when we got to the end, and now we've got it out of Bashir, and it's in this little disc that is a prison. Everybody looks at me as we walk into this room, and we're seeing it in this, space, and we know that he's dangerous, and we're not sure he's really dead, whatever. They look at me and say, you got your man. And I go, yes. And I turn and I blow him away. Judge, jury, and executioner. And they all looked at each other, and the look was, holy shit. There is no law out here.
Whoa, your character was a total boss.
On the edge of the final frontier, literally.
They had no governance over me.
Yeah.
I was a security officer. I had a full edict. I was a bounty hunter.
Yeah, essentially, you were a bounty hunter.
Rid of that guy. because he had destroyed worlds.
Oh, everyone remembers that cool episode where you were chasing Vantika. We loved your makeup and how you brought the character to life. It was all amazing. And that was your first big experience with Star Trek, right? Even though it was a spin-off, you later returned for The Next Generation. But here you were right in the thick of it with Deep Space Nine and the whole cast handling some heavy dialogue. You worked closely with the main cast like Alexander Siddig, Nana Visitor, Renee Aubergenois, and Avery Brooks. I mean, what was the dynamic like on set? Do you have any special memories to share?
I worked with this guy that was sort of subbing.
Do you remember that scene?
Avery and I became very good friends after that, although I haven't seen him in a long time. Avery was like Andreas Katsulas.
Oh yeah, he was
These
a big
are
Star Trek guy too.
gentlemen. Yeah, but Andreas played Jakar in Babylon 5. And so these men had a power about them.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't suffer fools. And they certainly didn't want you tiptoeing around them. They expected you to bring it. And because I had been married to an older man who was 6'7", I recognized that power. And I said, oh, this is going to be fun. Because I don't have to pretend to be something, else. I can just be as powerful as I want to be. And I can, look, the dialogue and the context dictate the character. Now, they wouldn't have hired me if they didn't want someone that couldn't go toe to toe.
Yeah.
I had to be able to walk up to Avery and be, boom, you don't know him like I do.
Yeah.
He's killed more people than you can even think of. Don't underestimate him. And, all due respect, I'm a guest star, but I just came off of Broadway and they all knew it. So there wasn't any, who the hell are you? They were very kind and very supportive. They were, most all of them had done theater, regionally or Broadway or whatever. And so there was that immediate respect, oh, she's not going to act like a guest star. She's going to come in and do her job.
Yeah, it's clear your character is all business because Vantika is really like a serial killer and you're not convinced he's really been caught. But you also feel like the Deep Space Niners aren't taking this threat as seriously as you. So you're just like, you know what? I got to get him.
They think he's in me. And so I love that twist of the plot because they think I'm the threat.
Ooh, okay. Interestingly, they thought you were the threat.
They think I'm trying to put them off of me and put all of the, they're like, he's dead. What are you talking about? I said, don't think he's faked his death more times than you can count.
So they think you're projecting their feelings.
I'm running a game, a scam on them, that I'm telling them all these horrible things about this entity that they know nothing about. Why should they trust me? I kind of look pretty scary. I kind of look like I could be the bad guy.
Thank you so much, Julie. Hopefully in the future our paths will cross again. And thank you everyone for tuning in to this episode of A Captain's Log. Lily and I will see you guys next week.
Bye for now.
Thank you